Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome once again to Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health. My name is Brent Axe. Great to be with you here once again. It's been a while since we've been here, friends, since after the Georgetown game. Feels like forever ago. So we're here. We're back. First of all, Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2022. Hope everybody is having a great New Year so far. Hope you had a great Christmas and great holiday season and everything. But unfortunately, the year starts off on a sour note for Syracuse basketball as they fall to Virginia at the Carrier Dome tonight. Final score 74-69. So you guys hop in the comments and get the conversation flowing. I'll react to what you have to say coming up here shortly. And looking forward to seeing what you have to say about this one. Syracuse let one slip through their fingers here. A winnable game against a Virginia team that they're not the Virginia by usual standards, right? You think of some of the best teams in the ACC in recent years, and Virginia's name is at the top of that list. They're not having a typical Virginia season, but they beat Syracuse tonight. So the Orange fall to 7-6 on the season. They're now 1-1 in ACC play. And this is it. Syracuse, after playing a couple of games this week against Brown and Cornell, and boy, the schedule, as you guys know, just got shifted around a bunch. Games canceled due to COVID, moved around because Syracuse had to go in a COVID pause. A couple of their opponents, Georgia Tech included, on Wednesday, had to go into a COVID pause. So Syracuse did what it could, and it wasn't for lack of playing in this game. They had played 2 games earlier this week. They had got the legs going and played Brown, played Cornell, and, both of those games were close at times, but Syracuse certainly pulled away and took care of business in those 2 games, but could not here on the start of full-time ACC play. And we're going to go into the box score a little bit here, look at a couple of key things, but I see you guys are hopping in the comments here. And one thing we got to highlight right off the bat, and not just because Mike Monaco gave me a little shout out on the ACC network. Thanks for that, Mike. Appreciate that. Rob says it here once again. Cue the Uncle Brent free throws matter. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? I mean, Joe Girard. Yeah, free throws certainly did matter in this game. And as James notes here, Syracuse's own allowing 74 points per game, 14th in ACC defense. Big problem. And as Casey Jacobson said after the Georgetown loss, Syracuse is not going to get quicker and stronger in the next couple of months. So, yeah, defense is certainly an issue for this team. They can't stop anybody. This is a bad defensive team. It's going to be a bad defensive team. This is going to be a team that's going to win games just by, trying to shoot the lights out here and outshoot teams. And that was not going to be the case tonight. That being said, Syracuse was in this right to the end. It's not like Virginia just completely neutralized Syracuse and kept them out of this. The Boeheim brothers, as we'll go over here in a moment, a huge part of Syracuse's scoring. But as you guys chat in the comments here, and I'll highlight a few more coming up here shortly, let's look at a couple of key numbers as I drop my phone on the floor. Let's look at a couple of key numbers from this one. So I want to start in the second half. Virginia shot 17 of 27. That's 63% in the second half of this game. Syracuse shot 13 of 35. That's 37%. In particular, in the paint, Virginia was just lethal in the paint. They were a terrific counterpuncher tonight. Every single time Syracuse made a run, hit a 3, Buddy Boeheim hit a shot. No matter who made a play, Jimmy Boeheim making a lot of plays in the paint. Virginia counterpunched every single time. It was, and this is a Virginia team that's really struggled this year. They've gone into a lot of droughts in games, a lot of shooting droughts where they'll go 6-7 minutes without scoring. Not in this game tonight. As we mentioned, Syracuse is not a good defensive team. They're not going to make stops like that, and they make it a little too easy on teams there. So that was big in this game. All told, Virginia shot 52%, 30 of 57. Syracuse shot 36%. So that's a big thing there. In particular, Syracuse did not get help beyond if you share the same last name as the head coach at all offensively in this game, as we'll get into here shortly. But free throws matter, friends. Syracuse 15 of 23. That's 65%, whereas Virginia did not get to the line as much, but when they did, hit 70% of their free throws tonight. Now, here's the surprising stat from this one. If Syracuse out-rebounds a team, that's typically good news for the Orange because they really struggle to rebound too. Syracuse was getting blasted on the boards in about the first 14, 15 minutes of this game, but turned the tide, went on a 16-6 run into halftime, and it evened up the rebounding stats. As a matter of fact, I think they had the rebounding lead by the time halftime came around. They maintained that, and they won the board battle tonight, 37-33. So that's a little surprising, but Virginia dominated on the defensive rebounding end, 24-19 there. So free throws were big. Rebounding was big. There were a couple of interesting substitutions that Jim Boeheim made in the second half of this game. Look, I don't know why Joe Girard was on the floor late in the game. That was just a move you went to just out of sheer habit, if you will. I know Joe can hit threes at times, but he didn't have it in this game. And Symir Torrance came in and made a big difference. He had a rebound, kick out to Buddy Boeheim that cut the Virginia lead down to 68-62. Had a couple of key hustle plays out there. All told, Symir played 10 minutes in this game, 2 points, 2 assists, a rebound, a steal. Like, his box score doesn't, pop off the screen, but he was playing more efficiently than Joe Girard, who in this game, 3 points for Syracuse, 1 of 4 from 3-point range, 1 of 5 shooting the ball overall. He did dish out 3 assists, had a couple of steals, but just didn't have it tonight. So that was a big one there. And also Cole Swider just killing Syracuse tonight. He had been good the last 2 games, but defense steps up, plays a better team. He goes 3 of 12 overall, 2 of 8 from 3-point range. So maybe, Benny Williams played some minutes in this game. He played 12 minutes. I like what we saw from Benny out there. Again, the box score doesn't punch you in the nose. 2 points and 4 rebounds, but I think Syracuse needed a little bit more Benny Williams out there, and I understand in some ways having the 3-point shooters out there, but when they're cold, you got to figure something else out. And again, Syracuse was in this game, but I think those 2 things hurt Syracuse down the stretch. Now, all told, Buddy Boeheim leads Syracuse with 27 points, Jimmy Boeheim with 18 points. So Jimmy and Buddy combine for 45 of Syracuse's 69 points. Jesse Edwards ends up with 9 points and 5 rebounds on the day. Look, he made some key plays. He made a big play at the end of the first half. He made a couple of key plays down the stretch, but this was not a good game for Jesse Edwards overall. Struggled to get to the corners. He got into foul trouble, came back in, did not foul out of the game. So they gambled there and got away with that. But you can't mark this down as a good game for Jesse Edwards. Frank Anselm came in, same thing, struggled to get to the corners, wasn't making a difference in the paint. Frank has done that at times this year, but really did nothing out there in 9 minutes tonight. We mentioned Swider struggles. He ends up with 8 points on the night, did rebound a little bit with 6. As we mentioned, Syracuse did out-rebound Virginia in this game, but you need someone else to score. The Boeheims did all they could, and Buddy Boeheim to go with 27 points, 5 of 11 from the 3-point range, 7 of 17 from the field, 5 assists on the night for Buddy as well. Virginia was hounding Buddy all night. What they really did, and a lot of teams are doubling Buddy in some way, shape, or form, but what Virginia did is once he started dribbling, they just, attacked him with a second defender, right? One-on-one at first, but then when he started to dribble and make a move, somebody would come over and help on defense. And he still scores 27 points. So you can't fault Jimmy and Buddy. They did what they had to do. But, like we said, free throws certainly mattered in this one. And, frankly, Jimmy Boeheim, let's see what he was at the free throw line overall here. Let me look it up while we're yakking about it here. Jimmy was 2 of 8 from the free throw line. I mean, you can't do that. If you're going to get to the free throw line that much, you got to hit those shots. So as good as he was down the stretch, hitting some shots in the paint, 4 steals, hustle plays, taking the paint back a little bit, 2 of 8 from the free throw line. Yeah, not going to get it done, friends. So the comment section is busy, a busy beehive here. So let me jump in here and highlight a few of what you guys are saying out there. Appreciate you joining us here on New Year's Day, by the way. As Jeff notes here, free throws were terrible, and other than the Boeheims, nobody else contributed there. And I really think Jim Boeheim's got to balance and think about Girard and Symir Torrance. Now, Symir has his weaknesses. He had been in Jim's doghouse a little bit coming into this game, but he was clearly the better player down the stretch. Joe was not hitting threes, and you got to play the law of percentages there. You've got Buddy who can hit threes. You've got Jimmy that can hit threes. You got Cole that can hit threes, right? I don't need Joe Girard out there if he's not playing well. If, there was a couple of shots, he does this every game, but there were a couple of shots, you're just like, come on, man. This ISO ball stuff's got to stop, distribute the ball. And that's what Virginia did really well in this game. It was a thing of beauty, frankly, to watch them pass the ball. Virginia's not a thing of beauty to watch generally. They like to grind. They're one of the better defensive teams in the ACC. They love games in the 60s, right? But they scored tonight because they got a team that can't stop anybody. And look, I don't want to just brush that off because you got to play defense if you're going to be a good team. And Syracuse is 7-6 now and continues to kind of dig itself a deeper hole if it wants to be in serious conversation to make the NCAA tournament, even in a wide open ACC. The ACC is down this year. There's not a lot of teams ranked. There's not a lot of great teams in this league. So Syracuse might be able to grind out a bit here if they can keep their head above water in what is a down league. But now you drop one to Virginia. And how's that going to look on your resume down the stretch? Because usually that's a great ACC win. I don't know what a win over Virginia is going to do for you now, and they didn't even get it, right? And boy, Virginia's kind of owned Syracuse as of late. Remember ACC tournament last year, they hit the buzzer beater, beat Syracuse 72-69. Tonight, near the same thing, 74-69 on the final score. Dan says Torrance needs to play more, as a nice handle, not afraid to get in the lane. And that's the other thing. Syracuse had more success in the second half, challenging Virginia inside. Virginia was great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they were very efficient in the paint. We gave you the numbers a little earlier there, but Syracuse wasn't even hitting threes in this game by and large. So yeah, Joe can be a liability in certain situations. Tonight he was, and I felt like Symir should have got the minutes down the stretch, but as they say, que sera, sera, whatever will be, will be. Mike says they were pretty much unchallenged in the paint, minus Edwards. Look, I think Jesse did what he could. He's going to have some games. Matt notes it here. Jesse missed some bunnies again tonight, lacks a little strength to finish against the bigger opponents. He's getting better there. I like the play he made right before halftime. He had a key stretch, grabbed an offensive rebound, kicked it up, and Syracuse hit a three to cut it down to three. He fought and scratched and clawed a little bit. Now, it wasn't a good game. I'm not saying it was a good game for Jesse, but some players, you just kind of can see them, their shoulders drop, their confidence drains out of their body. They just completely lose it, right? But I thought, and it didn't help that Frank Anselm didn't take advantage of the opportunity and was even worse than Jesse in some ways. But Jesse's becoming more of a fighter. And I think what we saw tonight is the exception and not the rule. He does have to get bigger, as Matt noted, but that's not going to happen tomorrow. He's been, terrific at times this year. He's still up there in terms of the ACC and block shots. He'll make a play just when you think he's out of it. He's got to control that foul issue, but he came back in with 7 minutes to go and didn't foul out. So not a good game generally for Jesse, but I can think of 3 or 4 plays he made in this game where you say, okay, he's still fighting in there. And you need that. You certainly need that because Syracuse doesn't have enough of that, on defense. As Doug notes, Jimmy missed about 6 straight free throws in this game. Yeah, that's a killer right there. That's one of those, just these guys work on free throws every day. It's just a matter of, when you get the opportunity, you got to be better than 2 of 8. You don't have to be 100%, but you got to be better than 2 of 8. If you're being aggressive inside, getting the ball in the paint and getting to the free throw line as much as Syracuse was in this game. Al says Benny does not know how to roam baseline. It was there for them. He just doesn't seem to know how to move without the ball. He's learning. I think Benny is building a little confidence. He's got to learn some of those things. But in a game like this, when Cole's not helping you, what's the better option, right? Because you have 3 other 3-point shooters out there. Give me a little more presence in the paint, especially the way Virginia was outscoring Syracuse. Benny's getting there. He's a freshman. He's still going to make freshman mistakes. We're just at the tip of the iceberg here, if you will, in ACC play. But I feel like there's got to be a little shorter leash there on both Joe Girard and Cole Swider. If they're not hitting, shoot or shoot. When they're hitting, yeah, you keep them in, right? But Cole will have an advantage. And I wonder how long this will be an advantage because I think Benny is going to develop into a great rebounder. He's a great shot blocker, and he's picking up things defensively right now. But look, he's in there to score, flat out. And if he's not scoring, you got to say it's not your game, kid. We need somebody in there that can get in the paint, do a little bit more against this team than what we saw. But again, really the frustrating thing from a Syracuse standpoint when you look at it is even what we're talking about here, they're in it. Virginia didn't put their foot on Syracuse's throat and keep them out of it. They counterpunched really well. Kihei Clark. Let's highlight a couple of Virginia players because, man, Clark, he's one of those, what a pest, and I mean that as a compliment. What a pest to have to play a player like that. He dishes out 8 assists on the night. Just looking at his numbers here, 6 of 9 shooting the ball, 3 of 5 from three-point range. Every time Virginia needed a bucket, it was Clark. Gardner, despite foul trouble, ends up with 15 points. He's their leading scorer on the night. Franklin was great for Virginia. He ends up with 17 points on the night. Shedrick was a great player in the paint, taking advantage of some Syracuse inefficiencies there. He ends up with 12 and 7 on the night. So Virginia's got talent. They just lost a bunch of talent to the NBA last year, and they're in a transition mode. And they did a lot of things in this game tonight that they hadn't been doing. I mean, they got clocked by Clemson in their last game just before the new year turned, 67-50. They go on a lot of droughts shooting, but not tonight. Not tonight, as we noted, particularly Clark finding some success in getting to the bucket in this one tonight. Mike says he just highlighted what I said, Boeheim boys, and whatever Edwards gives them, then no one else steps up. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can't have 2 players white hot and 2 players just stone cold, right? They're playing the NHL outdoor game tonight in Minnesota. It's like -6. Who wants to go to that game? I love hockey. I'd love to go to an outdoor hockey game, -6. Yeah, I think I'm going to skip that one. I think I'm going to sit by the fire and watch that game. But that's how cold those guys were, just not giving you anything offensively. So Syracuse goes through and look, it happens game to game like this. But you can't have 2 offensive players out of their mind and 2 offensive players just, not only that cold, but still on the court when they're not scoring and not really giving you anything else, particularly Joe. At least Cole was rebounding a little bit and gives you some size in the zone and does some things that you can kind of excuse keeping him on the court. But I think that's something to keep an eye on as the season goes along. And when Joe has a bad game like this, he's the point guard, right? If you're not scoring, distribute. Find another way to do it. Don't play iso ball. Just kind of know when you don't have it. Taking those long. There was 1 3-pointer he took, and Joe, there's a reason he could buy a T-shirt literally called Logo Joe. He can hit those shots. But you got to be smart about it when you don't have it. You're not feeling it. I don't want to hear shoot or any of these things. Find your teammates. Find the guys that are hot and keep them in it at this point. Yes, Brian notes here, Virginia owns this team at this point. Yeah, Virginia's just, it's been a tough go for Syracuse. Even when Syracuse has managed to beat Virginia, they've been close, right? Buzzer beaters, remember the Tyus Battle buzzer beater, and they're tough out. Virginia, despite their record in a down season, they're not getting, I mentioned the Clemson game. That's kind of the exception to the rule. They're not getting blown out by a bunch of teams. They're usually a tough out, and Tony Bennett's a good coach, and they'll figure it out. They might not have their typical year. They're going to struggle to make the tournament too, but Virginia is one of those teams you don't want to play one way or the other, right? RJ says this has to be the least athletic teams that I can remember. Not an athletic team, not a good defensive team. They've kind of figured out what they do well, and they try and exploit that and kind of hide their weaknesses at this point. So what we're looking at here, hey, Happy New Year to Blake, who's watching us from Houston. Sure, it's a lot warmer down there than it is here in central New York, but always appreciate you guys checking in and telling us where you're watching from tonight. Always appreciate that. Now, let's look ahead, because Syracuse, speaking of warmer places, they go to Miami on Wednesday. Miami's been pretty good so far. Now, they're not ranked at this point, but Miami, I think they were playing tonight. Let me check on them here. They're 10-3 coming in. They're 2-0 in the ACC. And let me check on it while we're yakking about it here, guys, because I believe, they beat Wake Forest tonight. 92-84. They beat NC State in the prior game, 91-83. So this is a Miami team in its past couple of games. Cameron McGusty's been scoring well. They can score generally. And given the inefficiencies Syracuse has had on defense as of late, you're going to have to be on your game offensively to keep pace with Miami. Mentioned Wake Forest, that's Syracuse's opponent after Miami. So the Orange will go to Miami Wednesday. They will go to Wake Forest on Saturday. And then after that, Syracuse comes home for 3 straight games. They will play Pittsburgh, a team you got to beat. They'll play Florida State, a team they've already beat this year, and Clemson, which is always a tricky team. Clemson's just they love to grind and, play that kind of, get in the mud pit kind of basketball, which Syracuse can struggle with at times, particularly if they're trying to get some offensive rhythm going there. But it's 3 straight games at the Dome. That is going to be a crucial crucial stretch for Syracuse, particularly after losing an ACC home game that they had. It's not like Syracuse had this game in the sense that it was their game. They were in it, but let me look at the stat here just to kind of put a number on this. Here it is. Virginia spent 37 minutes in this game with the lead. They led 93% of the time. So it's not like Syracuse kind of, dropped victory, if you will, and let Virginia sneak in at the end and take it. Virginia was the team with the lead, but Syracuse was in it most of the way. And in those games, it's the teeter-totter of the close games at home, particularly, that you got to get. So Syracuse goes on the road for 2. They've got to show they can win on the road. Quality victories certainly would qualify at this point. I don't know what their net ranking is at this point, but Miami and Wake Forest, 2 opportunities there, and then 3 straight at home that you got to check off the list, at the very least 2 out of 3, right? Because, look, it's January 1st, but before we know it, it's going to be February 1st. And before we know it, it's going to be February 15th. And what's the situation look like? It's bleak right now. You can't straddle the 500 line in a bad league and make the tournament. So is this a Syracuse team that can find a way to make a run, overcome its defensive efficiencies, and just find a way to get back in this thing? That is going to be the question at this point. The way they're playing right now, there's a couple missing ingredients that you'd have to say the answer to that is no at this point. Hello, Lori, checking in from Sacramento. Appreciate that out there in Cali. Michael Antonio, just going off what we said there, he feels like they're in a must-win situation for the next 5 games. I can't push back hard against that. I think that must-win is an overused term, but you need quality wins. And Syracuse doesn't have a ton of those at this point. As noted here from Mike, Miami's an NCAA tournament resume game. I think you're right about that. I think this team has got to show at this point. Oh, thank you. Different, Mike. Miami's net ranking is 107. That's not even a good net ranking at this point, but it's a win you got to get, because that's another loss that down the road is not going to help swing any votes towards Syracuse, if you will. I mean, this team always seems to find a way to be in the conversation, but it's a weird year, right? It's a weird year in terms of how your resume is going to be judged. Who knows what other COVID situations Syracuse could run, and it seems like they've had their bout with it, and they'll be okay going forward here. But Jim Boeheim was talking about this the other night on his radio show, and we could be in a situation, guys, where due to rescheduling, because the schedule is so compact and there's not a lot of room to move things around, they might have to play back-to-back games at some point to get the games in. And the ACC, thankfully and smartly, got rid of their the policy prior to this coming in was you forfeit if you lose a game. Thankfully, smarter heads prevailed there, because why would you give a team a win they didn't earn? And why are you going to punish a team for getting sick, right? I mean, in Syracuse's case, this is a team that's vaccinated and boosted, right? And still 14 of 20 players tested positive. They did everything they could. They had protocols. They were, doing what they could. They weren't as strict as last year, certainly. But the way this thing's gone around and what the policies are at this point, it's hitting a ton of teams. You don't need me to tell you that. You've seen that at this point. So there's inevitably going to be, I don't want to put a number on it, but there's going to be other teams that are going to run into protocol situations, and Syracuse is going to have to move some games. So let's say you're playing a key game on back-to-back nights, tough. That might be the way it goes. They might have to go into tournament style. Like you play on a Saturday, play a team on a Sunday, back-to-back. Like if you want to get the games in and try and judge this as best as you can in terms of a league situation on your resume, they may have to end up doing that. Haven't seen it yet, but it's on the table. So something to keep an eye on there. And Syracuse has got to find some quality wins here. They got to find some wins that pop, that stand out, that show the committee what they're made of, because right now it's the opposite. If anything, they've lost too many games. And as we said, they're straddling the 500 line at this point. So frankly, the tournament is a bit of a pipe dream at this point. But, we've seen this team too many times pull something out of it, what. So I'm not writing them off at this point, but it's certainly going to be a big uphill climb at this point. A couple more comments from you, and then we'll exit stage left for the evening. As Mike notes here, appreciate you looking this up. Virginia's net ranking 111, and it's a bad home loss. Exactly what we were talking about there. Bill noting that Syracuse is getting to the point where they're going to need every game. And it's hard to disagree with that, right? Your margin for error as we speak is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If anything, it might be gone because the league is not as rewarding as it used to be. Let's look at it while we're yakking about it here. Okay. So as we go into, let me just look at what the ACC situation is at this point, right? As we really get into it, most ACC teams have only played a couple of games. A lot of teams obviously have had to move things around a lot. So a lot of teams are in the same situation Syracuse is in, right, in terms of rescheduling and COVID exemptions and things of that nature going on. But there is one team in the ACC currently ranked, and we know who that is. It's Duke, right? If I go into the rankings, so if there's one team ranked, how many ACC teams are in others receiving votes that are even getting consideration for the poll? Wake Forest and just looking it over here. Well, yeah, that's it, guys. That's it. It's a bad league this year. It's a bad league. So Syracuse's opportunity to find some quality wins is getting thinner and thinner at this point because the ACC can't get out of its own way at this point. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, how Syracuse plays, how they overcome their inefficiencies, because they're just not going to get better defensively to the point where they're making stops where it's a feared zone, right? They can get better defensively. I mean, God, if they don't get better over the next 2 months of basketball, what are we doing here? But will it get to the point where it's a feared zone? No. It's not an athletic team. It's not a good defensive team. So they just got to learn how to live with that and make enough stops. They didn't make any stops in this game. So it's all in your offense. And when, as we mentioned earlier, when you got Cole Swider struggling, you got a Joe Girard struggling, you're going 2 of 8 at the free throw line from Jimmy Boeheim, 15 of 23 overall. You're just giving up too much. They lost by 5, right? They can scratch out games like this, but against some of those better teams, 2 of which you're going to play this week, you can't scratch out those games. You're going to lose those games by 12 points as opposed to 5 points tonight. As Greg notes here, and this is carried over into 2022, they are cardiac cues for a reason, right? Yep, new year, same deal for the Orange. Get ready for a lot of tight games down the stretch for this team, particularly in games like we saw tonight. And we'll end on RJ's comment here where he says, as usual, a poor shooting team shoots the lights out against Syracuse. And that's what can happen when you're a bad defensive team, folks. Okay, what do you say we end on that note? Appreciate you guys checking in. I know it's been a while, but we're back and we're going to be doing this, short of any other COVID things happening or games moving around. But we'll be here after every game doing the thing. Next matchup for Syracuse, as we noted, is Miami. That's an 8 o'clock tip time scheduled on Wednesday. So we'll be with you right here about 10 o'clock or so, right after that game ends. And we'll be right here on the Syracuse Orange Facebook page. We'll be here on Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube, live after the games. If you do miss the show live, we archive it on our YouTube page. You can find the YouTube clip in my recap on syracuse.com. We fire it off on our social media channels. If you're watching us on Facebook, the video automatically archives on Syracuse Orange Basketball on Facebook, so plenty of chances to catch the replay if you do miss the show live. We thank our friends at Krause Health for sponsoring, and we thank you for finding us here in the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's see what else 2022 brings us in terms of Syracuse basketball and a number of things, and we'll come back at you Wednesday night after the Orange take on Miami. You enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll talk to you again after the Orange take on the Hurricanes.